hall was silent. Hundreds of suited executives leaned forward as the stage lights bathed a young woman in brilliance. Aurora Marin stood tall, her voice steady, her poise undeniable. She wasn't just another speaker at this technology summit. She was the visionary every investor wanted to hear, the woman who had changed an industry. But for Elias Rowan, seated at the front in his tailored suit, the world seemed to collapse inward. His chest tightened, his breath grew shallow, for the name announced only moments ago had ripped through him like a blade, Aurora Marin. The daughter of the woman he once abandoned. The daughter he dismissed as unworthy of his future. He shifted uneasily, trying to keep his composure, but no composure could mask the storm inside. Once he had turned his back on her mother, Clara, when hardship weighed on their marriage. He had chosen wealth over love, appearances over loyalty, and now, before his very eyes, the child raised in the ashes of his betrayal had returned, not as a forgotten shadow, but as a millionaire whose very presence shamed him. Viewers, let me ask you, have you ever been underestimated? Cast aside, written off as though you'd never matter, only to discover a fire in your heart strong enough to light an entire city? Have you ever carried scars so deep they became your strength, the very fuel that propelled you to rise beyond every expectation? This is not merely a story of fortune. It is a story of pride, of betrayal, of a man who lost what truly mattered, and of a woman who taught her daughter that resilience is the purest wealth of all. It is about love once tender, torn apart by arrogance, and about the haunting realization that loyalty abandoned can never be purchased back with riches. Elias Rowan had once held Clara in his arms, their bodies tangled in passion, whispering dreams beneath quiet nights. He had kissed her tears, traced her skin as if it were the most delicate treasure. That love was not weak, it was real, it was raw. But when life struck them with hardship, he chose ego over intimacy, and the warmth of their union froze into regret. Now, watching Aurora command the stage, he was reminded of those nights, reminded of Clara's voice trembling against his chest, of the devotion he had once thrown away. Pride had stolen that tenderness from him, and the cost was written in the confident steps of the daughter who wanted nothing from him. Aurora's words rang through the hall with clarity. Strength is born when we are doubted. Greatness rises where love has been tested. And no empire is worth building if it costs the heart that gave you life. The audience erupted in applause, but Elias did not hear it. His eyes burned, not from the spotlight, but from the memories he had buried. The woman he had loved and left, and the daughter who now stood as proof that love abandoned can still bloom without him. And to you, my listener, before we continue this journey, I ask, if this story already stirs something within you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Mr. Ross Story Trail. Every tale here carries not just entertainment, but lessons to inspire your life. Stay with me, for this one is about to cut deeper than you expect. Elias Rowan sat at the edge of his worn leather chair, his fingers pressed tightly against his temples. The documents on the desk before him were more than numbers on paper. They were failures, debts, reminders of how quickly ambition could crumble. Only months earlier he had been praised for his sharp mind, admired for his daring ventures. But now, creditors called day and night, and investors who once smiled at him now refused to take his meetings. Across the room, Clara Marin folded laundry with quiet care, her presence soft but steady. She glanced at her husband, sensing the storm raging inside him. "Elias," she whispered, "we've seen hard times before. What we need now is patience. Faith." He turned sharply, his jaw tightening. "Patience doesn't pay the bills, Clara. Faith doesn't rebuild what's already lost. Do you have any idea what it feels like to walk through this city and know everyone whispers behind your back?" Her eyes filled with worry, but not for herself. She still saw the man who had once held her under starlit nights, vowing to build a life together. She remembered the warmth of his lips on hers, the tenderness of his hands. She knew his heart, even now, was wrapped in fear more than anger. "Let them whisper," she said gently, stepping closer. "What matters is us. What matters is our family. Elias, we don't need grand empires to be happy. We need each other." But her words, though tender, struck him like chains. To Elias, love without wealth felt like shackles. To him, devotion without fortune was a reminder of failure. He looked at Clara not as his companion, but as the weight he could no longer carry. His silence was heavy, and Clara felt it pressed between them like a wall. Clara had set the table for two, the meal growing cold as she waited. When Elias finally entered, his shirt undone at the collar, his face heavy with frustration, She reached for him instinctively. "Sit with me," she whispered, her hand brushing his arm. "Eat something. Talk to me." For a moment he allowed it, the warmth of her touch, the softness of her voice. His eyes closed, and he almost leaned into her, remembering nights when their love was a fire that consumed them both. Nights when he kissed her until dawn, when he promised she was all he needed in the world. But the weight of his failures crushed those memories. He pulled away sharply. "Talk?" he repeated bitterly. "What good is talk when we're drowning, Clara? Love doesn't pay debts. Love doesn't erase the shame of being laughed at by men I once called partners." Clara's eyes glistened, but she stepped closer, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "Elias, let them laugh. We still have us. Do you remember the night you held me after your first business collapsed? You swore then that together we could survive anything. I believed you. I still do." Her voice cracked, but her embrace was steady. She pressed her cheek to his back, willing him to feel her devotion, her unshaken faith. But Elias turned, prying her arms away. His face hardened, his pride stronger than the tenderness pulling at his heart. "You don't understand," he said, voice low, cutting. "I can't rise while carrying you. You're content with crumbs when I was born for feasts. You're holding me down, Clara. You're nothing but dead weight." The words landed like fire on dry skin. Clara's breath caught. She staggered back as though struck. Her love, her loyalty, her sacrifices, all dismissed in a single brutal sentence. Her trembling lips parted, but no sound came. Tears slid down her face, and she clutched the edge of the table for strength. The man who once whispered that she was his life, his breath, his very soul, now stood before her as the executioner of that love. Clara didn't sleep that night. She sat at the edge of their bed, staring at the empty pillow beside her. Just weeks ago, that same pillow had carried the warmth of Elias's head, his arm draped around her waist as he whispered his dreams into her ear. Now the sheets were cold, and his presence was already a ghost. When morning came, he placed the papers on the kitchen table without ceremony, a stack of lifeless pages, more crushing than any spoken word. She stared at them, her hands trembling. "So this is it?" she whispered. "After everything we've built, after every moment we've shared, you end it with ink on paper?" Elias didn't meet her eyes. He straightened his tie instead, his voice clipped and unyielding. "It's better this way. You'll be free of me. And I'll finally have the chance to climb again without being dragged down." Clara's chest tightened, and tears threatened to spill, but she held them back, not out of pride but out of strength, for herself, and for the little girl asleep in the next room. She could not let her daughter see her break. With trembling hands she signed, each stroke of the pen cut deeper than the last. When it was done, Elias gathered the papers and left without a backward glance. The sound of the door closing was final, like the end of a symphony played too soon. Clara pressed her hand to her heart, her body shaking. The man she had once given herself to completely, body, soul, and future, had severed their bond with cruel efficiency. But as her tears finally fell, she whispered to herself, "If I have nothing else, I still have her, and she will never feel abandoned, not while I live." From that moment, Clara's pain hardened into resolve. She would raise Aurora with love fierce enough to build a future brighter than any empire Elias thought he needed. The house was quieter now, too quiet. Where once laughter and conversation had filled the air, only the faint sound of Clara's daughter breathing in her sleep gave comfort. Clara worked long hours at a diner, wiping tables and pouring coffee with a weary smile that concealed her exhaustion. The pay was meager, but every coin mattered. When her body ached from standing all day, she reminded herself that Aurora needed food, shelter, and the warmth of a mother who would never abandon her. There were nights when Clara sat at the kitchen table, her hands red and cracked from labor, tears threatening to escape. But when Aurora tiptoed into the room, rubbing her sleepy eyes and whispering, "Mama, are you okay?" Clara forced her lips into a smile. She pulled her daughter into her lap, holding her close, breathing in the scent of innocence and hope. "You are my miracle," Clara whispered into her daughter's hair. "As long as I have you, I will never be poor." It was true. Their clothes were second-hand, their meals often simple, but love filled every corner of their little home. Clara read bedtime stories with passion, teaching Aurora about courage and kindness. She made every small holiday feel magical, even when she couldn't afford more than a cupcake with a single candle. Behind the struggle was a fire, Clara's determination that her daughter would never feel the emptiness she herself had endured. The pain of abandonment shaped her resolve. Aurora would grow up knowing she was worthy, strong, and capable of anything. Clara never spoke ill of Elias. Though her heart ached, she refused to poison her daughter with bitterness. Instead, she taught Aurora that true strength is born from love, and true wealth is found in dignity. Elias rebuilt like a man racing a clock only he could hear. He woke before sunrise, not to watch it but to outpace it. Calls overseas, terse meetings, debt restructured through willpower and charm. He studied market sheets until the ink smudged on his fingers, then pressed forward with a new venture that promised quick liquidity and public praise. Each small win lit up the city around him, yet left his apartment colder at night. He learned to wear success like armor, tailored suits, sharp watches, polite laughter at the right moments. He spoke in decisive verbs, secure, move, acquire, and trained himself to forget softer words like hold, keep, stay. In private, silence stretched across his living room, long and accusatory. He filled it with strategy podcasts, late-night emails, and the clink of ice in an untouched glass. Vivian Armand entered his world through a private investor dinner, silverware whispering over porcelain, voices low and confident. She navigated conversation like a gifted fencer, one step forward, one to the side, never overextended, always precise. Her eyes carried intelligence that read a room in seconds. Her compliments were measured, her critique sharper than crystal. "Your projections are bold," she said after a presentation, her voice like velvet wrapped around a steel wire. "But bold doesn't scare me. Hesitation does." Elias felt the old part of himself, the part that still believed tenderness had worth, lean forward. She noticed. She also noticed the way he checked his phone when conversations drifted toward personal histories. They began seeing each other. Beautiful restaurants, discreet car rides. Her perfume lingered on his collar, delicate yet distant. When she kissed him, she did it with the calculated grace of a woman who refused to beg for anyone's heart. He responded with heat, born of hunger, not devotion. In the hush between them, he remembered Clara's breath at his ear, the way love used to soften the world. He buried that memory under fresh deals and sleek sheets. Vivian appreciated outcomes. She admired his drive, encouraged his focus, and expected his attention to be as disciplined as his calendar. On a balcony above city lights, she tucked her arm into his and whispered, "You're sending again, Elias. Keep your eyes forward." Forward was everything. Forward meant no looking back at a kitchen table where divorce papers bled ink. Forward meant not seeing a child's drawing tucked into a box in his closet, Aurora's crooked stars, and a stick-figure family missing a father. He closed another round of funding. Cameras flashed, handshakes multiplied, his name resurfaced in trade columns. The applause tasted like sugar, sweet on the tongue, empty in the stomach. When his driver asked where to next, Elias answered without thinking, "Home." He paused, corrected himself, gave an address with glass walls and expensive art. The car pulled away, and the city lights flickered across his face like a confession he refused to say out loud. While Elias moved through polished offices and glittering events, Clara's world unfolded in the quiet resilience of daily survival. The little home she and Aurora shared was modest, worn furniture, second-hand curtains, but laughter filled its corners. Aurora grew quickly, her mind restless, her hands eager to explore. She spent hours on an old second-hand computer Clara had saved months for. Its keys faded and screens scratched, yet alive with possibility. Where other children saw toys, Aurora saw lines of code. She scribbled symbols in her notebooks the way others scribbled doodles. "Mama, look," she said one evening, her face glowing as she showed Clara a program that made shapes dance across the flickering screen. "I made it move because I told it to. Isn't that like magic?" Clara brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face, smiling despite her fatigue. "It's more than magic, my love. It's proof that your mind is powerful. Never let anyone convince you otherwise." Aurora leaned against her mother's shoulder, her small hand tracing Clara's tired fingers. "Someday I'll make something big," she said. "Something that helps people. And you'll never have to work so hard again." Clara pressed a kiss to her daughter's forehead, fighting back tears. "Aurora, you don't owe me anything. But if your heart leads you there, then I'll be the proudest mother alive." Their nights were stitched together with stories, both read from books and whispered from memory. Clara told her daughter of courage, of women who rose when the world doubted them, of men who found humility only when it was nearly too late. Every story was a lesson, hidden beneath comfort. Outside their door, the world was indifferent. Bills stacked on the counter, food stretched to last longer than it should, and the weight of long shifts never let up. But inside, Love and determination created a fortress. Aurora's brilliance was no accident. It was born from the fire Clara carried in her heart, and from the unwavering truth that even in brokenness, there could be beauty. Aurora stepped onto the university campus with a worn backpack and fire in her chest. It was her first day, and already the air felt heavier than home. Here, brilliance came wrapped in money and name recognition. Students flaunted brand new laptops, spoke with ease about family legacies and tech internships passed down like heirlooms. No one asked her name. No one noticed the girl who arrived by bus and carried her entire world in second-hand notebooks. She sat in the back row of each class, listening more than she spoke. Not because she lacked answers. Aurora had plenty, but because she learned quickly that people didn't always hear the truth when it came from someone like her. During group projects, others talked over her. She offered cleaner solutions, tighter code, smarter design, but they were often ignored until someone else repeated them louder. She stayed silent, for now. While classmates went out to network, Aurora stayed behind in computer labs. She kept her hoodie pulled tight, eyes locked on the screen, fingers moving like second nature. When things broke, she fixed them. When ideas sparked, she captured them. But at night, the pressure showed up like a shadow. On one of those nights, she called her mother. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. "They don't see me, Mama, no matter how hard I work." There was a pause, then Clara's voice, calm, solid, rooted in something deeper than hope. "Then don't wait for them to see you, baby. Build something so bright they can't ignore it." Aurora wiped her face. Her breath steadied. Her fingers reached for her laptop again. She didn't want applause. She didn't want their seats at the table. She wanted to create something they didn't even know they needed, until it changed everything. And so, in borrowed silence and low-watt labs, she started laying the foundation, for impact, for something bigger than every door that had been closed on her. It happened in the quiet, not the spotlight. Aurora was running on black coffee and stubbornness, buried in lines of code when it came to her, not a product but a platform. A place where developers across the world could collaborate freely, build together, and share breakthroughs in real time without gatekeepers or paywalls. It wasn't flashy. It was revolutionary. She stayed up for 48 hours refining it. She didn't wait for approval. She uploaded her first prototype publicly and walked away, unsure if anyone would notice. They noticed. Within a week, developers from 6 different countries were on it. Feedback poured in. Features suggested, bugs reported. Praise whispered like a secret passed around back channels of the coding world. Then came the email. An angel investor had stumbled on her project. He'd seen a thread about it, followed the link, and stayed up all night exploring its potential. They met in a quiet cafe. Aurora wore a shirt she ironed 3 times. She spoke with conviction but no arrogance. Her pitch wasn't a performance. It was a conversation. When she finished, the investor sat back and said only 4 words, "You've built the future." With the first investment secured, she didn't celebrate. She worked harder. She chose her team carefully. People overlooked like she had been. People hungry not for clout, but for purpose. She named the company Bridgecode. It wasn't about status. It was about connection. Real, meaningful, global. By the time tech blogs caught on, Bridgecode was already signing major licensing deals. Panels invited her. Interviews requested her. But Aurora declined most. She wasn't building a brand. She was building something lasting. Back in their modest apartment, Clara watched the updates roll in. Her daughter's name was appearing on screens she never thought she'd see. She smiled softly, holding her tea close to her chest. She knew this wasn't luck. This was love turned into legacy. If you believe greatness is born through struggle and love, take a second to like this video, drop your thoughts in the comments, share it with someone you care about. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Ross Story Trail, where every story leaves a mark. Aurora never sought the spotlight. She let her work speak first. But eventually, the world began to speak back. Bridgecode's influence spread like wildfire. Governments adopted it for infrastructure collaboration. Startups relied on it to launch products in record time, and tech communities began referring to it as essential. What once began as a whispered tool for underdogs became the foundation beneath billion-dollar ideas. And the girl who once sat at the back of every classroom. She received an email with a gold-embossed letterhead, Global Tech Alliance, Innovation Summit 2025, Keynote Speaker Invitation. At first, Aurora stared at it, unsure it was real. She had grown so used to being overlooked, she'd forgotten what it felt like to be openly seen. When she told Clara, her mother didn't jump or shout. She simply sat still, eyes glistening. I always knew you'd be the voice in the room no one could talk over, Clara said. Aurora accepted the invitation, but behind her calm composure, she was preparing for more than just a speech. She was preparing for the moment she had never said out loud, the moment she might face the man who once decided she didn't matter. The summit would be hosted by a powerful private conglomerate, the same one now led by Elias Rowan. Far away, in a skyscraper office lined with sleek panels and glass trophies, Elias reviewed the summit lineup on his tablet. When he reached the keynote name, his hand stopped moving. Aurora Marin. The screen blurred slightly as he leaned forward, staring harder, not wanting to believe what he already knew. His chest tightened. The name was a mirror that would force him to face the part of his past he had long buried beneath ambition and steel. If you've ever dreamed of proving someone wrong, not out of spite but strength, then don't just watch. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, leave a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Ross' Story Trail. The next moment is where everything changes. Elias Rowan was back where he had always wanted to be, on top. CEO of a global conglomerate, headlines called him visionary, resilient, in the face of new industry. His company was hosting the year's most prestigious tech summit, and every major investor, leader, and publication would be watching. His life looked perfect on the outside. Luxury, influence, calculated companionship with Vivian. But beneath the surface, something in him had settled into silence, not peace, just a dull ache that never left. Late at night, when Vivian wasn't around, he scrolled mindlessly through media feeds searching for something that might make him feel alive again. Nothing ever did. The summit arrived. Elias adjusted his cufflinks in the green room mirror. His team buzzed around him. Press updates, run-throughs, timing reminders, but their voices blurred into white noise. He kept checking the keynote slot, assigned to a name he didn't recognize, Aurora Marin. It stuck with him, not because of the name itself, but because of the sharp breath he took every time he saw it. Marin. His hands paused. His thoughts darted where he didn't want them to go. Clara. It couldn't be. He brushed it off. There were plenty of people with that last name. The auditorium filled, thousands in the audience, cameras rolling live across platforms, a standing room only crowd. The lights dimmed. A hush spread like wildfire. And then, a spotlight bloomed across the stage. There she stood, poised, composed, dressed in a tailored black suit, no jewelry except a delicate chain with a single charm. Aurora Marin. His breath caught. She didn't stumble. She didn't shrink. She stepped to the microphone with the calm of someone who had nothing to prove and everything to say. Gasps whispered through the crowd. Tech insiders leaned in. Elias couldn't move. The girl he once left behind, the child of the woman he discarded, was now commanding a room full of the very power he once craved. His heart slammed against his ribs. She hadn't just survived, she'd arrived. Aurora looked out over the room, eyes everywhere. Influential faces, tech elites, government observers. The same kinds of people who once ignored her. She let the silence stretch for just long enough. Then she spoke. "I want to thank the hosts of this summit for the invitation," she began. Her voice was calm, steady, deeply present. "It means something to stand here, not just as a builder of technology, but as someone who once had to fight to be heard in rooms like this." The audience was drawn in instantly. "I come from a home where money was scarce, but love wasn't. My mother taught me that brilliance isn't defined by circumstance. It is shaped by how deeply you believe in yourself when no one else does." From his seat near the stage, Elias sat frozen. He could no longer hide the truth from himself. This was Clara's daughter, his daughter by law, if not by name. And now, with every word, she peeled back layers of his memory. The child he'd ignored, the mother he abandoned. Aurora's eyes swept across the crowd, never lingering on Elias directly, but he felt exposed, as if she were speaking straight through him. "We've built tools to change the way people collaborate across the globe. But real innovation doesn't start with money. It starts with being told you're not good enough, and daring to build anyway." The room erupted in applause. Several executives stood to clap. Cameras flashed, capturing the image of a young woman who had not just earned her seat at the table, she built the table. Elias clapped slowly, unsure of what else to do. His jaw was tight, his heart heavier than it had ever been. He had once dismissed Clara's warmth as weakness. Now that very warmth had raised a daughter whose power didn't come from ego, but from purpose. He wasn't just proud. He wasn't just ashamed. He was hollow. Vivian leaned toward him slightly. "Do you know her?" He didn't answer. "Because how do you explain walking away from a family, only to watch them rise without you? If that moment hits you, if you've ever imagined rising above what others thought you'd become, Go ahead and hit like, share this story, comment your thoughts below, and most of all, subscribe to Mr. Ross Story Trail. You don't want to miss what happens next. The summit was winding down. Applause echoed in the halls. Deals were whispered over champagne, and reporters huddled near power circles like moths to flame. But Elias wasn't with the other executives. He stood alone in a private lounge behind the stage, staring at a nameplate left behind, Aurora Marin, keynote speaker. He ran his fingers over it, his thoughts scattered, his confidence unraveled. A quiet knock broke the silence. Aurora stepped inside, no cameras, no applause. Just her, steady and composed. He turned, his eyes searching hers. You were extraordinary out there. Everything you've built, it's incredible. And I know I don't deserve this moment, but I had to say... You had to say what? Aurora's voice remained calm, but her eyes flashed. That you're proud of me now? That you want to reconnect, now that I've proven something? Elias lowered his gaze. I made mistakes, he said quietly. I walked away. I chose the wrong things, but I see you now, and I see what I lost. Aurora crossed her arms, her expression unreadable. You didn't just walk away from my mother, she said. You walked away from me. You looked at us like we were disposable. And now that the world has your name in headlines again, you think that earns you the right to mine? Her voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Elias took a step closer. I never stopped thinking about her. Or you. I didn't know how to come back. Aurora nodded slowly. And yet you still showed up here. Not for love, not for family, but because success suddenly made me valuable. That silence between them was colder than anger. Then she said, more softly, I didn't come here to forgive you. I came here to honor the woman who raised me. Before Elias could ask what she meant, the door behind her opened. And in walked Clara. She entered quietly, her presence calm, yet powerful enough to freeze Elias in place. Her posture was gentle, but there was no mistaking the strength in her eyes, the kind that only comes from surviving heartbreak and still choosing grace over bitterness. For a long moment, no one said a word. Elias looked at her as if trying to wake from a dream. She wore a simple blouse, no jewelry, no designer bag, just dignity. And time had only made her more beautiful. He swallowed hard. Clara. Her eyes met his, not with anger, not with longing, but with clarity. I didn't come here to relive the past, she said softly. I came because Aurora asked me to. She wanted me to see this moment with my own eyes, and now I have... He stepped closer, his voice nearly breaking. You look exactly the same. I'm not, she said. The woman you left behind died in pieces after you walked out. But she rebuilt herself. She raised a daughter who's now standing taller than either of us imagined. He reached out, fingers trembling slightly. I was wrong. Clara didn't move. Yes, you were... Her voice wasn't cruel. It was honest, clearer than any courtroom judgment, deeper than any apology could cover. I thought if I left, Elias said, if I became someone powerful enough, maybe I could circle back, fix it, earn something back. Clara gave a faint smile. Not warm, not cold, just true. You still think everything's about earning? He nodded slowly, ashamed. Behind them, Vivian had quietly appeared at the doorway. She stood still, watching the man she had believed to be her equal now unfolding before someone else. She saw it in his face. He hadn't just come for closure. He came for the part of his soul he'd left behind. Without a word, Vivian turned and left, knowing she had never truly owned his heart. She had only occupied the space where Clara used to live. Elias looked at Clara again, eyes brimming. I don't expect anything. I just wanted you to know. You were never the weight. You were the wings. Clara's lips parted slightly. A breath escaped. She blinked, once. Then quietly, thank you. What would you do if you had to choose between pride and love? Let me know in the comments. And if this moment stirred something in you, don't just scroll past. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and most importantly, subscribe to Mr. Ross Story Trail, where every story speaks to the soul. The rooftop was nearly empty now. The summit had ended, the crowd dispersed, and the lights of the city pulsed gently below. Clara stood at the edge, arms folded, her eyes scanning the skyline. She didn't hear Elias approach, but she felt him. He stopped a few steps behind her. You always liked high places, he said quietly. Clara didn't turn. They remind me how small the world is. and how easily people think they can escape the consequences of what they leave behind. Elias exhaled. You don't have to say anything. I know I was wrong. I know I shattered everything. A long silence passed. Then, Clara turned. Her eyes softened, just slightly. I never stopped loving the version of you who held me through the worst. Before pride took him away, he stepped closer. I miss him too. His voice cracked. For the first time in years, Elias wasn't performing. He wasn't leading a boardroom or wearing his name like a shield. He was simply a man, stripped of ego, asking to be seen again. Clara hesitated. Then slowly, she stepped into his arms. She didn't promise forever. She didn't offer forgiveness wrapped in certainty. But she let her head rest on his chest. For now, that was enough. A spark wasn't a fire, but it was a beginning. The evening was quiet as Clara walked beside Elias, their footsteps echoing gently down the corridor. He paused near the elevator, not wanting the night to end. Clara, is there any part of you that still feels what we had? She turned to face him. Her voice was kind but firm. There will always be a part of me that remembers it, that honors what we were. He looked down. I had hoped, maybe, we could find our way back. Clara gave a faint, sad smile. You can't return to a house after you burned it down and expect the warmth to still be there. Tears stung his eyes, but he nodded. He understood. I'm proud of you, she said. Not for building an empire, but for facing what you ran from. That takes strength. He watched her walk away, her presence still gentle, still beautiful. He didn't chase her. For the first time, he understood that real love sometimes means letting go. And somehow, in the weight of that goodbye, Elias felt something unfamiliar. Peace. The limo idled outside. Vivian waited in silence, legs crossed, staring out the tinted glass. Inside the building, Elias stood between two women, one from his past, one from his present. Clara's voice had steadied. This isn't about choosing me, it's about choosing the kind of man you want to be. Vivian had followed him in, unexpectedly. She had heard more than enough. I've never asked you to feel anything, she said, but I can see it in your eyes. I was convenience. Clara was love. Elias swallowed hard. He looked at Vivian, polished, brilliant, unwavering. He looked at Clara, weathered, graceful, whole. Vivian stepped closer. If you still believe in ambition more than affection, then come with me. But if your soul is still trying to return to where it broke, you know who to stay with. He didn't move, not for a long time. Then he turned to Clara. He didn't speak. He simply took her hand. Vivian gave a nod, just once, and walked away without a word. That night, Elias sat beside Clara, not as a man seeking redemption, but as a man finally understanding what love costs and what it's worth. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to Mr. Ross Story Trail, because the next story may inspire you even more.